President Tinubu assures of consumer credit facility to discourage corruption. Supreme Court reserves judgment in appeals challenging declaration and return of Bola Tinubu as duly elected president. And now the news in full. Nigeria has won its case against Process and Industrial Development's PID Limited in London court after 5 years of litigation. Anthony Forsen reports.
The judgment came after 5 years of legal frameworks, which has finally been settled to the advantage of Nigeria. The London court quashed the 11 billion arbitration award issued in favor of PID. The ruling, delivered by Justice Robin Knowles of the Commercial Courts of England and Wales, upheld Nigeria's prayers on the grounds that the ill-fated gas processing contract was obtained by fraud. The Business and Property Court in London delivered the judgment in the case between the Federal Government of Nigeria and Process and Industrial Development PID Limited. The federal government had initiated the development of tankers for the transportation of crude oil through the creeks of the Niger Delta, following the inability to fix the often vandalized pipelines in the region. However, PID had agreed with Nigeria in 2010 to build a gas processing plant in Calabar for the purpose. It failed and turned round to sue Nigeria, claiming that the contract failed because the Nigerian government did not fulfill its end of the bargain, saying Nigeria breached the terms of the contract and took a legal recourse and secured an arbitral award against Nigeria. On the 31st of January 2017, a tribunal ruled that Nigeria should pay PID $6.6 billion as damages, as well as pre- and post-judgment interest at 7%. Nigeria applied for an extension of time and relief from sanctions, which was granted by Ross Cranston, Judge of the Business and Property Court of England and Wales, in September 2020, thereby returning the case to arbitration. With that development, Nigeria alleged that the gas deal was a scam conceived to defraud the country. Lawyers representing the federal government told the court that PID officials paid bribes to secure the contract. But PID denied the allegation and accused the Nigerian government of false allegations and wild conspiracy theories. In a March trial at the court, Nigeria alleged that the contract was secured through dishonest means that included bribery and perjury, and that the arbitration award, which has risen to $11 billion because of its interest, should be quashed. And it has been quashed. Nigeria stands tall in the case. Anthony Forsen, NTA News.
Now, President Bola Tinubu applauds today's judgment rendered by Judge Robin Knowles of the Business and Property Court in London, awarding a landmark victory to the federal government of Nigeria over a firm known as Process and Industrial Development PID Limited. Following Judge Knowles' dismissal of the $11.5 billion value of the award, plus accumulated interest previously won by PID over a failed 2010 deal to allegedly build a gas processing plant on the grounds that the award was obtained by fraud. President Tinubu commends the UK court for prioritizing the merits of the case above all other considerations. In a statement signed by Special Advisor to the President, Media and Publicity, Ajurin Gelale, the President says victory is not for Nigeria alone, and the country is appreciative of the tremendous efforts of the defense team and acknowledges the role of the Federal Ministry of Justice and the Office of the Attorney General in the process of defending Nigeria's interest in this case. And the Supreme Court has reserved judgment after hearing all the appeals filed before it against the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Court, which affirmed the election of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the All Progressives Congress, APC. Judiciary correspondent Austin Anyebe reports.
Before the Supreme Court are three appeals emanating from the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Court. The first one is by the presidential candidate of People's Democratic Party, while the second one is by Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of Labour Party. The third appeal came from APM. The 7-man panel of justices commenced sitting with the hearing of 2 motions regarding the appeal filed by the presidential candidate of PDP, Atiku Abubakar. The first application filed and moved by the presidential candidate of PDP, Atiku Abubakar, prayed the court to admit deposition from the United States of America on the discrepancies in the certificate the president presented to INEC during the 2023 presidential election. Adopting the motion with 20 grounds, counsel to Atiku Abubakar, Chris Uche, senior advocate of Nigeria, urged the court to consider the constitutional provisions and do substantial justice in the appeal, considering the fact that the issue in the deposition seeks to be tendered borders on discrepancies of the certificate presented by the person occupying the highest office in the country, and urged the court to allow the application. Counsel to INEC, President Tinubu, and All Progressive Congress enjoined the court to dismiss the application as they were not party to the process that produced the disposition that the appellant seeks to tender, as it was a mere testimony given in the appellant's law office in the United States of America. The second motion was filed by the respondents, who prayed the court to dismiss the application for lacking in merit, more so that it is not in tandem with the provisions of the Electoral Act. After hearing the applications, the appellant Atiku Abubakar, through his counsel Chris Uche, senior advocate of Nigeria, proceeded to adopt the substantive appeal, which challenged the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Court, while the respondents also adopted their replies to the appeal. The court thereafter proceeded to listen to the appeal filed by the Allied People's Movement, which seeks interpretation of the Constitution on the alleged double nomination of the Vice President Kashim Shatima. The panel of justices presiding over by Justice Inyang Okoro sought from the counsel to APM what they stand to gain if the judgment is in their favor, having not come second or third in the election. It went further to draw the attention of APM to the judgment it delivered on the matter. Consequently, the appellant withdrew the appeal and it was struck out. The Supreme Court also had the appeal filed by the presidential candidate of Labour Party, Peter Obi, who challenged the decisions of the Presidential Election Petition Court. He prayed the Supreme Court to upturn the verdict. His counsel, Levi Uzuaku, senior advocate of Nigeria, and respondents adopted their brief of argument. Having heard all the appeals, the panel of 7 justices decided to reserve judgment as a date shall be communicated to parties. From the Supreme Court, Austin Anyebe, NTA News.
President Bola Tinubu has assured that his team is already working on the workability of the consumer credit facility promised by his administration to discourage corruption, particularly in the civil service. The president was at the 29th edition of the National Economic Summit holding in Abuja. State House correspondent Musbah Oden Wahab reports that the theme of the summit is pathways to sustainable economic transformation and inclusion.
For the administration charting a new course for economic prosperity, this assemblage is equally a priority, and the man in front would not miss it. It's also a convergence of interest as participants from the private and public sectors, chief executives, and other top-level decision-makers are here to lend voices towards setting agenda for the nation's economic transformation. The potentials are great, but the realities are yet gloomy. But then, the summit identifies declining naira value, low access to foreign exchange, multiplication of taxes, and MSME's multi-dimensional complexities among the hurdles along the pathway to the nation's economic greatness.
With more than 100 million of us being multidimensionally poor, there are potentially more risks of stagnation and distress if a low growth and low investment era persists. We know a multi-trillion-dollar economy is viable within a decade of serious reforms, consistent economic action, and deliberate institutional reforms.
The economic realities are currently below expectations, with less than 2,000 naira per capita and 43% of the citizens below poverty lines. But the man at the center, with these forward-looking ideas, says the solutions are in the works with bold economic decisions taken so far.
We have all felt the pain of these reforms. Soon, we shall begin to reap the rewards. I believe in the definition of our profession that I inherit the asset and liability of my predecessor. The framework has been put in place to ensure that these obligations are met in due course. My government is not blind to the challenges several of you are facing in the financial markets. I can only allay these concerns by revealing that we have a good line of sight for the additional foreign exchange liquidity that is required to restore market confidence, and we are going to do that.
President Tinubu promises the takeoff of a new student loan in January, construction of affordable homes, among other transformative policies and programs to strengthen the economy.
A $1 trillion economy is possible by year 2026, and a $3 trillion economy is also possible within this decade. The future is calling, and this administration will not hesitate to seize the opportunity of this moment. Our finest destiny is awaiting us all. Let Nigerian breathe a sigh of renewed hope and confidence.
For him, looking back is a distraction, as he now expects workable ideas from this high-level economic gathering for clearer pathways to economic transformation. In Abuja, Musbau and Wahab, NT News.
And indeed, President Bola Tinubu has assured Nigerians of a 1 trillion economy by 2026 as strategic steps are being taken towards stimulating economic growth. This is as stakeholders at the ongoing 29th Nigerian Economic Summit in Abuja are suggesting practical steps towards the attainment of set targets.
From supply of foreign exchange from NNPC, increased production, reduced expenditure, from transactions such as forward sales, from our discussions with sovereign wealth funds that are ready to invest and front load, provide advance funding alongside that investment. There is a line of sight on $10 billion worth of inflow of foreign exchange in the relatively near future, in weeks rather than months. We will come out representative of the true market, because the market itself over time will adjust to some of these things.
But all the groundwork is already in place for a 3-year intervention, $750 million, to work on business climate reforms across every state of the country. What that means is that land reform, access to fiber optics processes, regulatory interventions, judicial processes, small claims courts, these are the issues that businesses have been clamoring about for years, payment of taxes. And so with this intervention, there's a holistic pathway to delivering those reforms, trackable and empirically for Nigerian businesses.
And over time, we're going to be refining up to about 1.4 million barrels of crude oil per day, which will make us a net exporter of refined products, all shades of product, PMS, AGO, NAFTA, you name them.
That the only way to go is the blue economy.
In the area of remittances to the CRF, Consolidated Revenue Funds of government, all these government GOEs, government-owned enterprises, that before this time generate a lot of funds but fail to remit it, we are pushing.
We do believe that without introducing new taxes and without increasing the rate of tax, we can expand the tax net and close the gap of 20 trillion naira, which is actually conservative, within the next 2 to 3 years.
We have a strategy, we have an e-government master plan, we have policies to drive digitalization of Nigerian public service. With this political buy-in and support and commitment by the President, we are sure that all hands will be on deck to make sure that that dream of Nigerian public service to be among the first 20 in the world by the year 2025 is going to be achieved.
Mr. President has promised to run an ethical, transparent, and accountable government. And our view is that with increased digitalization, with the use of technology in governance, we can reduce need for human interaction. And when you reduce that, you also are able to curb corruption.
This is news on NTA International. We take a break.
Reform may be painful, but it is what greatness and the future require. We now carry the cost of reaching a future Nigeria where the abundance and fruit of the nation are fairly shared among all, not hoarded by a select and greedy few. A Nigeria where hunger, poverty, and hardship are pushed into the shadows and ever-fading past.
Hello, with everybody for you.
Say hello to GoTV's newest package. GoTV Super Plus has all the great channels you love on GoTV Super. Plus, big-time international and kids channels the whole family will love. Plus, plenty of live Premier League action on Super Sports Premier League channel. It's the package you asked for and we listen. GoTV Super Plus, available from 1 August. GoTV, love it.
Thanks for staying with us. Vice President Kashim Shatima will meet with the President of the African Development Bank, AFDB, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, at the World Food Prize Foundation's Norman E. Borlaug International Dialogue in Iowa, United States of America. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President, Media and Communications Office of the Vice President Stanley Nkwocha, the Vice President Shatima will deliver a keynote speech at the event's plenary session on Tuesday, the 24th October. He will later participate in a side event on the African Agriculture Dialogue on special agro-industrial processing zones. On Thursday, the 26th of October, he will take part in a fireside chat with the AFDB President. The Borlaug Dialogue brings together individuals from more than 65 countries to address cutting-edge issues related to global food security and nutrition. This year's theme is Transforming Food Systems, a Global Action Agenda. Vice President Shatima will use the platform to speak to Nigeria's strong agricultural sector potential and push for commitments in achieving President Bola Tinubu's mandates and programs for Nigeria's agro-food sector. He is also slated to meet with major stakeholders and investors across the United States after the event. Now, counting begins in Switzerland on the day of the federal elections to renew the 200 members of the National Council Lower House and the 46 senators of the Council of State's Upper House. According to the polls, the Swiss populist right, which is anti-immigration and anti-EU, is likely to emerge stronger against the backdrop of the European migration crisis and the resurgence of the risk of terrorist attacks in Europe. The hardline conservative Swiss party, People's Party, was projected to secure 29.1% of the vote in elections to the National Council, the lower house of parliament, after 95% of district results were declared. This was on track to be the second best result in the party's recent history after winning 29.4% of the vote in 2015. The Liberals suffered their worst result, winning just 14.5%. The operator of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant said the discharge of the second batch of the treated radioactive wastewater into the sea has ended as planned. The International Atomic Energy Agency officials in Japan, for their first safety and monitoring mission since the release began 2 months ago, said no issues were observed. Details with Francis Udojo.
Fukushima Daiichi started releasing treated and diluted radioactive wastewater into the sea on August 24. The operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings, said the release of a second 7,800-ton batch of treated wastewater was completed, with its daily seawater sampling results fully meeting safety standards. Reports say a magnitude 9.0 quake on March 11, 2011, triggered a massive tsunami that destroyed the plant's power supply and cooling systems, causing 3 reactors to melt and spew large amounts of radiation. Highly contaminated cooling water applied to the damaged reactors has leaked continuously into building basements and mixed with groundwater. The release of the treated wastewater is expected to continue for decades. It has been strongly opposed by fishing groups and neighboring countries, including South Korea, where hundreds of people have protested. China banned all imports of Japanese seafood the day the release began, badly hurting Japanese seafood producers, processors, and exporters. Russia recently joined China in the trade restrictions. Francis Udojo, NTA News.
UN peacekeepers made an early withdrawal from their camp at Tessalit in northern Mali because their lives were in danger, the United Nations mission said on Sunday. Malian troops on Saturday took over the Tessalit camp, the army said on social media, the first handover in the Kidal region, where clashes with armed groups have fled recently. The withdrawal of the UN stabilization mission in Mali, MINUSMA, after 13 years has ignited fears that fighting will intensify between troops and armed factions for control of the territory. The pullout was completed in an extremely tense and degraded security context, putting in danger the lives of personnel, according to a MINUSMA statement received on Sunday. Before quitting the base, MINUSMA said it took the difficult decision to destroy, deactivate, or put out of service expensive equipment such as vehicles, munitions, generators, and other items. The last convoy left Tessalit on Saturday by road, heading for Gao, the biggest town in northern Mali. Mali's ruling junta, which seized power in 2020, had in June demanded the mission to leave, despite being in the grip of jihadism and raging crisis. The withdrawal of around 11,600 soldiers and 1,500 police officers is due to continue until December 31 and has exacerbated rivalries between armed groups present in the north. Now, a delegation from Ghanaian Licensing Authority is in Nigeria to understudy the Federal Road Safety Corps work processes as well as identify areas of strength for purposeful collaborations in the near future. Oyeyemi Ajayi has details.
Identified as a force to reckon with globally, the Federal Safety Corps has continued to be the envy amongst its peers, especially in Africa. Its records and achievements over the years, to many, is quite irresistible, endearing it to become a case study for many who know the importance of effective road management. One of those is the delegation of Ghana's Drivers and Vehicle Licensing Authority, led by its director, who visited the Corps' headquarters to understudy work processes for possible institutional reforms in this country.
We understand that with the passing of the AFTA agreement, the sub-region is definitely going to be having some level of harmonization of policies, harmonization of systems, and it is just good for us to start to do that and also identify areas of collaboration where we can build synergies towards the future.
Noting that Nigeria and Ghana share so many similarities, even in languages, the FRSC Commercial echoed the role of the Corps, which is to set standards and regulate the processes involved in driver's license issuance, which includes designing and production of the driver's license.
Then we also have what we call the program, the Driving School Standardization Program. Okay, so through that program, we set up regulations for the driving schools, which are privately owned, where we set the standard, we set how they operate, how they will do the testing of drivers, certify them, the drivers, for the states now to authorize them to obtain license. So they must pass through that process.
The commercial, however, assured of the Corps' readiness to assist anywhere necessary, while encouraging the delegates to key into its drivers' training and certification scheme being ISO certified. Oyeyemi Ajayi, NTA News.
Now, Burundi has become the 100th country to implement FIFA's Football for Schools program. This was declared at a ceremony held at the Urinani Stadium in Buganda outside Bujumbura, attended by FIFA's President Gianni Infantino, the Burundi Minister of East African Community Affairs, Youth, Sports and Culture, Gavias Abayeho, and the President of the Football Federation of Burundi, Alexander Muyenge.
Aujourd'hui, le Burundi, c'est la capitale du monde. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, par ce magnifique projet Football for Schools, le football pour les écoles, la FIFA, avec le Burundi, on unit le monde. On unit le monde dans un projet de football, dans un projet d'éducation, dans un projet qui donne des chances et des opportunités à une jeunesse, à des filles, à des garçons de ce magnifique pays, le Burundi. Vous êtes un peuple fier, vous êtes un peuple de football.
FIFA chief Next is the weather forecast for Tuesday.